Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is already Wednesday, which means it's match preview showtime. And ahead of this weekend's clash up north with Doncaster Rovers, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by a familiar face from Twitter and the social media world. And that is Daniel, who runs 18Dapper YouTube channel, which is a dedicated Doncaster Rovers fan channel. So please, I will put his details in the description at the bottom of the video. Go and give him a follow and subscribe to his channel because there's some brilliant stuff on there. I was lucky enough to be on his 72 review last weekend, and that was great fun. But before we go any further, I just want to say that tonight's episode will be dedicated to the memory of Gills fan Canaan O'Dell. Canaan was 28 years old and sadly passed away yesterday, far too soon. He leaves behind a 2-year-old daughter, a loving family, and plenty of friends. It seems from the stories that I've read and from what I've told that this world unfortunately just became too much for Canaan. I did put up a short tweet yesterday evening. So let's remember Canaan as we saw him at games, and that was laughing, smiling and joking with his friends, enjoying himself and supporting the football club that he loves, because it's something that resonates with all of us, because we all do it. We go up and down the country regardless of how bad it gets. And sometimes it's our friends that get us through when the football's crap. If you do one thing today and tomorrow and moving forward, check in on your mates. Right, to the football, Dan. Yeah, it gets you, doesn't it?
It does, mate. And honestly, what you just said there was superbly put, and I can't really add any more to it. Like you say, just anybody you're close to, just checking on them, because you never know, do you?
No, and it cost absolutely nothing to just say how you're doing, and it cost
Yeah.
absolutely nothing to just to find out what people are feeling. Right, Doncaster v Gillingham this coming Saturday. Last six makes pretty a reading for Gills fans, but there was some joy last weekend for Donny fans. Their last six fixtures are Mansfield at home, 2-2 draw, Notts County at home, 3-1 defeat. They then travelled to MK Dons and went down by 2-1. Swindon at home was a 0-0 draw and points on the board after a tough run. They then went to Wrexham, by all accounts, put in a decent performance, but come up just short to lose by the odd goal in three. But finally, last weekend, and from what Dan told me on the 72 review and from what I've seen online, probably was not the best performance in the last six. But finally, and I've seen the goal, and it was definitely a cross.
Yeah, well,
2-1 win at Forest Green Rovers, which gives Rovers 5 points from the last 18 available. It gives them 5 points from 24 overall this season. It leaves them currently in 22nd position. Gills from the last six, I won't go into too much detail because we know all about that, Gills fans. It's 12 points from the last 18, and we currently sit pretty at the top of League Two with 18 points from 24. It's going to be an interesting matchup, Dan, because obviously you've not been in the greatest form, but you've won a game. But the home form must be a concern as well, considering you've only taken 2 points from 4 matches this season.
yeah, it is on paper. You look at it and, like you say, it's 2 points from 4 games, which I think when
But
you
then you've got
look
to
at the
bear
start,
into mind who you've played, I suppose, is
yeah,
the
I think.
caveat.
I mean, we had Harrogate first game of the season, and that was one that Rovers fans were looking at and thinking that's a good chance to get 3 points on the board nice and
Mm-hmm.
early. Then we had Newport away, and
Yep.
no disrespect to both of those teams, I think a lot of people who have done predictions and things have got them kind of struggling towards the bottom end of the table. So looking at the fixtures when they first came out, I thought, yeah, we're going to have 6 points, and then we've got a really tough run, and we're probably not going to get a lot out of that. And we just started really poorly. I think performances have improved over the past couple of weeks, especially at MK Dons. We played really well at Wrexham. I think stopping Swindon from scoring with 10
Mm-hmm.
men for 45 minutes as well shouldn't really be overlooked.
No, of course, yeah, because they've started absolutely ridiculously. I mean, they
Yeah,
conceded those,
so
but yeah, they
I think
scored
if we'd
from
have had
them.
11 players on the pitch on that game, we might have got us first win a week earlier or a couple of weeks earlier. So yeah, it's concerning that we've not got points on the board, but I've seen a lot of posts on social media about questioning Grant McCann's position with the start that we had. I think that's ridiculous. I think the recruitment that he's done and the performance levels that we've seen compared to the last couple of seasons, it's chalk and cheese, mate. So I'm not worried at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's a long time to go. I think we've got obviously Gillingham this weekend, Barrow next weekend. That's another 2 tough games, but we're going to have a run of fixtures where I think we'll get more points than not. So I think we've had a tough run, and hopefully in a month or two we'll see it settle down a little bit.
You've almost sort of half answered my next question, because my next subject is the manager, and Grant McCann returned to the football club to great fanfare amongst the fan base. I think that's fair to say in the summer, and we know what he did last time. He was successful. He's been successful generally at League One and League Two level with various football clubs. So we know that Grant McCann's a good manager at the level. And you talk about them first 2 games looking favourable on paper at least, but we also know that football's not played on paper, unfortunately. So number one, it's clearly not gone as quite as planned when McCann took over, and the excitement amongst the fan base in the pre-season and looking at the people that you recruited and that type of thing. But my next question was, will he be given sufficient time? Because, and I only asked that not on anything to do with Grant's ability as a football manager, but more to do with the more short-termist approach to football these days, where we know if you go 6-7 games and you're not picking up points, then suddenly you're under massive pressure. And that's not just League Two, that's just the game in general these days. And it's probably not the right approach, but it's the way of the world. So number one, you're confident McCann will turn it around. You've already said that. So if you can give us some more details on that. And you're confident also that the board will allow him time to turn things around and improve on this difficult start.
Yeah, I think for me, the connection between the fans and the club that has been, it's been really fractured over the last couple of years from when Darren Moore left. Obviously, Andy Butler took over until the end of the season, and it didn't go too well. There were question marks about not getting an experienced manager in to kind of carry on what Darren Moore had put in place, because we weren't a million miles away from automatics when Darren Moore left for Sheffield Wednesday. And then since then, it's just been a backward step every single game. After Andy, Richie Wellens came in, absolute legend to the club, and it just didn't work out for him. He's proved that he's a good manager at League Two level. He absolutely walked it like with Leyton Orient, given money and given a squad that was capable. Obviously, he was replaced by Gary McSheffrey. Question marks over kind of experience as a manager once again, and then it didn't work with Gary McSheffrey, and then Danny Schofield came in again. Exact same questions about experience as a manager. So for the board to kind of rip the paperwork up from what they've done in previous recruitments of a manager and bring Grant McCann back, it's just kind of connected everybody again. Even with the start that we've had, every single game there's thousands of people singing his name, and we've not had that for a manager for a long time. So I think it'd be a stupid idea to get rid of him and have that knee-jerk reaction to current results. For me, there's nobody else out there at the minute who we could replace Grant McCann with who would do a better job, in my mind. I think we'd be going back to kind of inexperienced managers, or we'd be having to pay a lot of money to fetch somebody in. So yeah, for me, the board have got to give him the time. They give him the money. They give him the resources. I think the recruitment's great. Injuries are playing a big part, I think. So when we get those players back, I think we'll see a really strong team with options for McCann to kind of swap and change it. So yeah, for me, we can't not give him time.
And also, like we've said, we've already mentioned it, them fixtures that you've had at the start of the season, you're looking at a lot of them that would probably be in the top 8-10 in terms of the betting for promotion this season. So it's been tricky for a multitude of reasons, and some that you can't control, and it is what it is. You have to just crack on and get on with it, don't you? Yeah, but at least you think that the board and the fans will stay on side with Grant, because, like we've said, he's a good manager at the level, and he's proved that time and again. We've spoken about transfers and injuries and that type of thing, and we know injuries are things that every club up and down the land has to put up with at some point throughout the season. We've had it ourselves over recent weeks, and luckily it's starting to clear up a little bit. But if I've got this correct, and obviously correct me if I am wrong, 13 new arrivals since the end of last season. I made it 10 permanents and 3 loans.
Sounds right, yeah.
Looking at,
been that many, I've lost count myself.
If the internet has not let me down. So I've picked out a couple of standout names for me. Were Richard Wood coming down from Rotherham, loads and loads of experience. We know that he's definitely in the twilight zone of his career now, veteran stage and that type of thing. But he's going to offer something that you've probably not had on or off the pitch for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's leadership and almost a sheer bloody mindedness to make yourselves harder to beat. And then Joe Ironside, I thought, was a really good bit of business as well. Done well for Cambridge for a couple of seasons at League One level. But there's plenty of others that you've gone down a slightly different route. Younger, taking a chance on some National League players. So I've written down Jamie Sterry from Hartlepool, Jack Senior from Halifax, and Owen Bailey from Gateshead. Have any of them stood out, disappointed, or is there someone else that I've not mentioned that's been good?
Yeah, so I think seniors looked okay. I think the problem that we've got at the minute, for kind of both ways really, is like you say, we've kind of dipped into the National League and taken a chance on a few players. I think it's going to take them time to adapt to the level. But you mentioned Richard Wood. He's always played his football at Championship, League One level. So I think he's having to adapt his game to League Two as well. So it's kind of a backwards way of working for him. So I think there's been question marks over his ability at the start of the season. But I agree with you. I think he offers so much more on and off the pitch than what we've had over previous couple of seasons. Just organisation, like I say, leadership, and just that sheer grit and determination to win games. I think when he settles in and starts playing as he did at Rotherham, I think he'll just grab the team by the scruff of the neck and pull us through some games that we need it. So I think that's a really good signing. You mentioned Joe Ironside. He's really impressed me. His hold-up play is unreal. Reminds me a lot of John Marquis when he was here, and hopefully he scores as many as what John did when he was here. But just his hold-up play and bringing players into the game is we've not had it for seasons. So I'm looking forward to seeing him over the season. For me, Deji Satona, another one which was kind of a little bit of an unknown entity. Very quick and tricky, good with the ball at his feet. I think you just need to release it a little bit more. So I think we've got raw talent there. It just needs kind of in, and hopefully Grant can get the best out of them.
Again, and that's something else that's not going to be instant, is it? This was the chat we had with and amongst our own Gills fans after the Harrogate win was we should be beating them by more, and it was turgid and attritional. But forget the conditions that day. We know it was ridiculously hot. But I said to someone, still 6 players that started that game for Gills that are either new signings or weren't regulars last season. And like yourselves, we signed a couple out of non-league or that were on loan at non-league clubs at least. In January, Jaden Clark came from Dulwich Hamlet. And then we signed Ethan Coleman, who was at Leyton Orient, but had been on loan at Bromley in the National League. They took time to settle, and we gave them 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then they got the odd start towards the end of the season when we were safe, and they're starting to thrive now. So I suppose the disadvantage that Doncaster have is that you're expecting them they're learning on the job at the start of the season. They've not got that. I don't want to say where games don't mean anything, second half of seasons, but there is a period where if you get yourself safe or you've got nothing to play for, that you can experiment to a degree and give these type of fringe players minutes to see how they adapt to the rigours of first-team football. And you're not getting that benefit because, obviously, it's been a tough start and you need to get points on the board as soon as possible.
I think we're a couple of years behind as well because of the methods that the board have put in place in terms of recruiting inexperienced managers. I don't think they've really given them a budget. Now, for Gills fans that don't know, we've got a thing called Club Doncaster. So basically everything that happens at the stadium, all the revenue goes into one pot, and then it's split between the Rovers, the Dons, and the Bells. It's not 33% each. It's split proportionally for kind of the revenue that comes in. But basically, other little bits like renting office space in the stadium, five-a-side, car boots, things like that. Anything that the stadium can bring in money wise, determined our budget. And it sounds good. It's self-sustainable to a certain extent, but it doesn't give you a competitive budget. And unfortunately, I think we're feeling that now from a couple of years of having a squad basically strangled of any sort of budget to get any quality in. We're now starting from scratch, and like I say, you guys had kind of the back end of last season to kind of blood some of these players in.
Yeah.
we've not had that. So yeah, we are having to kind of see him learning on the job now.
So based on that, my next question would be, and again, taking into consideration the tough start, what was your hopes for Donny at the start of the season in terms of top half, consolidation, top 10, playoffs? And have they now had to be changed because obviously we're 7 games in and you've only picked up 5 points, so you've already given yourself a bit to do on the top 7, the top 3. So yeah, what would be a successful season for you in terms of Doncaster Rovers?
For me personally, I had us down in 10th. I think just an improvement on last season, both positionally in the league. The amount of games that we lost last season, I think we were second highest defeats behind Rochdale.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, changing them defeats to draws or wins, and just kind of seeing an improvement on the amount of points that we got, the performances, just the feel around the club. I saw it as a very tough League Two, with MK Dons coming down, not counting Wrexham going up. Stockport still would be in there or thereabouts. You can never discount Bradford or Salford, even though they both had poor starts. So yeah, I saw it as a really competitive division. So I thought maybe top 7, top 3 would be out of reach this time, just because of the amount of rebuilding that we had to do this summer.
Sure.
With our tight League Two, always is there's always that chance of breaking into top 7. But I was just happy with visual improvements from last season, and that's not really changed. I think we've just had a really tough start to the season. I think we'll start to see points and results coming in that'll see us climb the table. So I still think we'll probably finish kind of mid-table to higher end mid-table.
That's it, and I'd say that, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you now, but there's plenty worse teams than Doncaster Rovers in terms of squads.
Yeah.
In League Two, but as again, it comes back to the same point that game's not played on paper, unfortunately. Otherwise, it'd be very easy, and it'd also be fairly boring, I'd imagine as well. One player I want to ask you about who joined just quickly, and then we'll get on to team news and that type of thing. He joined you last summer, I think it was, and everyone was surprised at the time, and everyone thought, "Oh, this is a bit of a coup for Doncaster Rovers." Was Luke Molyneux? I think joined from Hartlepool. He'd had a very good season the previous campaign, and like I say, I think the general sort of consensus on social media was that Doncaster have done well to pull this off. Could have gone League One, or certainly to no disrespect, a bigger club in League Two. It's been a disappointment, I'd say. Is that correct? And are there reasons why? And are there signs that you could still get the Luke Molyneux that you thought you bought 14 months ago?
Yeah, so like you say, came from Hartlepool. I think he'd scored 12 goals the season before, and you look at that in a poor Hartlepool team. You said it were a bit of a it was a statement signing last summer, and it just really underwhelmed me. I had expectations that we were getting somebody who was going to absolutely light the Power Stadium on fire, but it didn't happen. Only scored a couple of goals last season. I think he was getting played out of position.
I was going to say, is that just down to him, or is that down to tactics, systems, being played in the square pegs, round holes, that type of thing?
Tactics and system than him as an individual. I think he did try probably a little bit too hard in some games. I think you could see that the pressure of wanting to get that first goal and things like that and perform was probably showing a bit too much. But he was in a really poor team last season. So I think it's difficult or harsh to judge him on last season. I think his performance levels are much better this season. Obviously, Grant McCann loves a winger, and is being played a lot more kind of naturally in that position. So I think we've got to see what he does this season. I was hoping that he'd be able to link up with Sterry again because that was the season that he had a really good season, him and Sterry on the right hand side for Hartlepool. But Jamie got an injury at the start of the season and is not featured. So we've not even seen that partnership even start this season. But I'm hoping we see the Luke Molyneux that we thought we were buying last season.
Yeah, it just always gave me the impression that he was almost a player that just needed to just almost get like a free run, like to just be allowed to roam in that final third. But for that, you need other players that can be interchangeable and fluid. I mean, we've got someone, probably the closest we have is someone like Johnny Williams. Whereas if you can play him from the side and you've got a 10 that can play wide, then you can just let him roam in because you know that the centre midfielder's then going to move out into that position if need be and that type of thing. But yeah, it'd be one to watch.
Yeah.
Certainly, it was just an intriguing name from me when you're looking through your squad and thought, yeah, he's just gone off the boil for a season and hopefully, obviously not Saturday. I hope he's awful along with the rest of them. But after that, I hope he picks up again. To be fair to him,
Yeah, me too.
Team news. It's Wednesday. I say this every week. So we're a day before official press conferences and that type of thing. But obviously, I've got an idea of what's going on at Gills. You've got an idea of what's going on at Donny. So what are we likely to see from Grant McCann's side on Saturday afternoon? So I've just had a look on an app that I use, Dan, and it seems to be that he's fairly flexible with in terms of systems. I've seen games where it looks like a 4-1-4-1, then there's others where it's a 4-2-3-1. I've seen a 3-5-2, a 3-4-1-2. So is that a good thing, the flexibility, or is that also potentially a hindrance that if McCann keeps changing the system every game, players are not getting used to their roles and are unable to build up proper relationships if they're being put next to someone different every week and in a slightly different formation and with a different sort of responsibility?
Yeah, I think this is partially why we've had a poor start to the season, because I don't think Grant McCann knows his best setup and his best starting 11, along with the injuries that we've had as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's been a really tough start for Grant, but we seem to be settling a little bit more on the 3-5-2 with having wing backs. But then one of his wing backs, Maxwell, got injured in training the other day, so it may change up. I think you need to be flexible in football, especially more recent years, to kind of counteract what other teams are doing. But then at the same time, having said that, I'd sooner see us play our game and make other teams think, especially at home. For me, we shouldn't be adapting to how Gills are setting up. We should be kind of taking the game to you guys, but football's changed and it seems to be a bit more like a game of chess now rather than we'll score more goals than you. But yeah, I think we'll probably end up seeing 3-5-2 tomorrow, Saturday, sorry. And
Wish it was Friday.
I know. It's been that long a week. It's only Wednesday. Yeah. But yeah, we'll probably see 3-5-2, I think.
Yeah, that's the system that you played in your last two games, if you include the win over Everton's youngsters in the Papa John's Trophy in the week as well. So, and would I be correct in saying that system probably suits Richard Wood better now, given his age, that it's probably more difficult for him to play as a pair? If you can get a centre half either side of him, it gives him a little bit of protection.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think if you've got, he might play senior next to him and Oluwu, and they both got a bit of pace about them. I think if you've got Anderson in there as well as Wood, you've got real opportunities to kind of get the ball down on the floor and play around them, and a couple of pacey attackers, and they could be in trouble. But yeah, I think if Senior and Oluwu either side of Wood, I think that's quite a strong defence.
So you think that'll be your back three Saturday? So
possibly,
give me the rest.
Yeah.
Give me the rest.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll go with. It might end up moving Senior to left wing back and having Anderson in there to kind of deal with any long balls in. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of call it at the minute because I don't think we've named the same 11 2 games running yet.
I've just noticed as well that Richard Wood didn't actually start against Forest Green either, did he?
No.
So maybe that, I suppose there's the chance that then you persist with the same 11, barring injuries, that have won you your first game of the season. So
it makes sense to stick with something that's worked, but like you say, with injuries and things, we don't know at the minute.
That's it, of course. And like I say, we're still 2 or 3 days away from the weekend, as much as Dan was trying to get us to Saturday quicker. Right. In terms of Gills, team news, Dom Jeffries, I think, is back on the grass after a hamstring pull, but I think Saturday will come too soon. I think the aim's for Mansfield the following week. So we continue to miss his services. We continue to miss the services of Timmy Dieng, who was a victim of that fairly poor tackle at Grimsby that led to, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks, they've said, medial knee ligament. George Lapsley, unfortunately, after having a brilliant half an hour against Morecambe last Saturday, tweaked a hamstring as well. So he's unlikely to feature. So that's 3 big players in midfield that won't be available. I know there was a behind closed doors friendly Tuesday, which I think finished 0-0. unless I've made that up. And I'm sure Ollie Hawkins and Lewis Walker were due to feature, but there was no details put up in terms of how long they got from the Gills official Twitter page. So I wouldn't make any changes to our 11. And like you say, I think you've got to try and concentrate on yourself and do what you do properly and not worry about the opposition. So I think Gills will persist with a 4-2-3-1. So I think it'll be exactly the same team for us. So that'll be Turner in goal, Alexander, Masterson, Ogie and Malone as a back four, Coleman and Sean Williams protecting, and then Connor Mahoney, fresh from his wonder goal last weekend. Jaden Clark, sorry, not unchanged, but unchanged from how we finished. Jaden Clark in the 10, Johnny Williams from the left, and Macaulay Bonne up top, who has done pretty much everything aside from scoring his last three appearances, which he started in each of them. He just needs a bit of luck, and I think he might go on a bit of a run. Dan, before I let you go and enjoy what's left of your evening, I know you've got an early start and you need to get yourself to bed. The dreaded score prediction.
See, I normally predict with my head and not my heart because I try and be as balanced as possible. And if it was going to be head, I think I'd go with a 1-1. But after his first win and then back-to-back wins, which is unheard of in Doncaster over recent years, I think
everyone beats Everton.
Yeah, there is that. But yeah, I'm going to go 3 on the bounce. I think a tight, nervy 2-1. We'll go with that.
I said 2-1, but obviously I've gone the other way.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a good game. I think I know it's a cliche. I think first goal could be key because if you get it, the belief keeps coming back. If we get it, I think Doncaster players might go back into their shell and go, "Oh, here we go again." And like I've said previously on other episodes, and to yourself on your 72 review at the weekend, we're very good from the front, so I do think the first goal could be very, very pivotal. Right, thanks to Dan for coming on. Like I say, a familiar face. Please do go and give him a follow. Please subscribe to his channel. There's some brilliant stuff on there. I'm sure I'll be making some type of appearance beforehand on Saturday. If him and Lee from Around the Grounds are not too fat to move, I'll just leave that there. Keep an eye on Lee's channel is all I'm going to say. I'm not being rude. It will all make sense come the weekend or very early part of next week. Yes, we'll be back Saturday for a match day live. Myself and Ava are travelling up. So come and say hello for that. And yeah, just to reiterate how we started the episode, that this is dedicated tonight to the memory of Canaan O'Dell, a Gills fan who sadly left us too soon. And like I said, check on your mates. Up the Gills.